The episode begins with Miller riding the transport, lamenting his slip, lamenting that he used to be good at his job, and just got shit canned for actually doing it for once. But as he notes in a video letter for Jules Pierre Mao, cases like hers are given to detectives like him when they don't want them to be solved, when they just want someone who will poke about enough to declare her lost and gone from the station and not really figure out what happened. They used his own half-assing nature against him, never realizing that Miller would go full ass this time. More than full ass. Hip-hop music video ass all over this case. As he decides to head for the docks, we check in with the Rocinante, where our disgruntled rockhopper's actions have had consequences. Seems the Martians are so jumpy about it, they're heavily patrolling the entirety of the area.
If anyone comes on board...
They can't check every ship.
That's true, but these are awfully high stakes. Specifically, your lives that are being gambled with. Well, the Yanksy puts a laser on them. Not a weaponized laser, one for information. Naomi quickly messes with the Rocinante's systems so that it doesn't recognize Martians as friendlies. Don't want to give themselves away like that. It'd be embarrassing if you're caught because you were being too welcoming. But there's something in between the hulls of the ship that is broadcasting a radio signal in code. No way of knowing if it's supposed to be doing that or not. The problem with just taking a ship and making off with it is there's not much time to really read the manual, not to mention figure out which glove compartment it'd be stashed in. Amos suits up and heads into the gap where he finds a stowaway, but he knows how to deal with stowaways. If all you have is an Amos, everything looks like a nail. He had to come aboard on Tycho. I mean, the Tycho patch obviously makes that clear, but Alex's point is that there's no other way to get on board. Except, as Holden notes, Fred Johnson has no reason to plant a spy on board. You don't spy on someone who's more clueless than you are. He's the spy that Avasarala wanted reporting on what was happening on Tycho. Normally, he just does corporate espionage stuff. He lies and says he was fleeing because Fred Johnson was on to him and he needed to get the duck out of Fodge, and thought that Eros would be a good place to do that. Only thing is, we're not going to Eros, so you hitched a ride with the wrong people, although beating the shit out of you probably already made that clear. The signal has drawn the Yangtze's attention, so the spy, finding out Amos is going to be keeping him in an airlock, says he has an idea.
Look, you need to...
That's our suggestion box. It's for suggesting you shut the fuck up. On Ceres, Miller has reached the docks, heads into an OPA tavern, and makes his presence known. Anderson Dawes is there, and rather than continuing the earlier plan of having Miller killed, declares him his personal guest and offers him a drink. He tries to do his usual United Belter spiel, but makes the mistake of saying what he was doing was for Miller too, which is hard to square with tossing him out an airlock. Nobody is buying, "I was killing you for your own good." On Earth, Avasarala is heading off to pay a visit to Holden's family. The title's not only another reference to Don Quixote, but because the farming complex they have is covered with wind turbines. Mother Elise, that's Holden's birth mother, is not particularly happy she's here, and since Avasarala calls them political extremists, that's backed up. I mean, just look at her, chopping up vegetables. You make me sick. She's just giving the line, of course, how Avasarala can frame this any way she likes. Holden, kicked out of the Navy, joined a radical fringe group reminiscent of the extremists he grew up with. But the way Avasarala is talking makes clear to Elise her son is not dead, or this wouldn't be such a fuss.
Rocinante, you have been flagged for inspection per MCR Trade Regulation A066. Do not deviate from your present course.
Yeah, that meets my criteria for a fuss. Amos tosses the spy into the airlock despite him insisting he's got ways to help.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Either way this plays out, you're dead, and I'm the one that's gonna bring you the good news.
I'd settle for just an email on that one. Amos explains they're caught up in the churn, when things change in a big way and all little people get tossed around and stuff. There's nothing to do then but try to survive, and this guy, well, he's gonna have to try really, really hard. Back on Ceres, Miller busts into Julie's apartment and starts seeing if there's anything the OPA missed. But really, it's just something to do to feel constructive. It's only when he stops that he notices the bird again. He's been seeing it a lot and grabs Julie's necklace. I think he's inspired by the sight of it. The idea that maybe it's time to just fly. Well, the real news is that a shuttle from Anubis, remember that from the data broker's implant? Well, there's another lead on it, another place to pick up the trail. And on a similar pathway, Elise tells Avasarilla to hit the road.
Is that for me? To take me to some windowless room so your interrogators can make me talk?
Of course not, as far as you know. Elise tells her to piss off. She has no idea what she's playing with, so Avasarilla admits the truth. In order to go into public service like herself and her father, her son would need to have spent some time in the military. So she said she wouldn't pay for his education unless he served in the Marines. Only that put him on Callisto during an OPA insurrection and got him killed. So she knows what it's like thinking her son is dead, but always waiting for someone to stay. It was all just a misunderstanding. While Elise mulls that over, Amos brings the spy upstairs to share his brilliant idea. They're a gunship pretending to be a gas hauler, and that, he says, is what the Martians need to realize. They need to realize they're a gunship pretending to be a gas hauler. Because there's always covert shit going on out here. Alex backs it up. One time, when he was flying a transport, they came across a ship, and the person ended their spiel with donkey balls, and that made the captain immediately back off. All they need is the right code word, and these Martians will too. They just need the book, which is in this box, and they just need the key, and Lopez gave it to Holden, and they just need... Anybody feeling lucky? While they think about that, Miller gathers up all the casino chips he's been bribed with over the years, and literally hangs up his hat and departs, running into his significant whatever on the way who thought that he was about to blow his own brains out. Well, he says he's going to Eros, and that she can't come with him. Not on this one. This isn't the kind of job where you should have a partner, especially when you're on a one-man cruise to sort out a solar system-wide conspiracy theory. There's no need to drag down other people with you. Meanwhile, Elise tells Avasarilla that what they instilled in Holden was the need to help restore the land, until she realized that they were setting him up to lead a fight that he could never win. So she told him to leave and get as far away as he could, and space is pretty far. But someone else came just as far, and being caught up in the churn, well, he was not raised to save the land. He was raised to get kicked in the face until you kick back. So when they can't get the box open, Amos heads down for what he calls Plan B, guns to deal with the Martians when they come aboard. Holden is aghast at this idea, apparently having not seen those two dipshits that we saw screwing with the Rockhopper.
There's more innocent blood, then I don't want it.
I thought so. A guy with big ideas wanting to take on the bad guys. As long as it doesn't cost him anything.
Oh, full contact on that one. Holden threatens to shoot Amos if he tries to shoot the Martians, and Amos seems to not particularly give a shit. Everybody does what they gotta do, seems to be his attitude. Alex does his best to try to stall until Naomi is able to disable the magnetic locks, and he pries the box open with a crowbar. There's 3 words on there, so Alex slips them all in, along with donkey balls for good measure. Donkey balls, by the way, was the enemy of the stars of Super Marlowe Brothers. So the Martians back off, and the fact Holden had a gun on his head doesn't faze Amos in the slightest. Hey, we're okay, and I didn't get shot. Nothing to hold a grudge over. Meanwhile, Avasarilla tells Ehrenreich that she's certain now that Holden is not a terrorist. But the fact that the spy that she strong-armed has gone missing after reporting that Holden was heading to Eros in a disguised Martian gunship on orders from Fred Johnson personally convinces him that Holden is too much of a liability, and he's sent in a Black Ops team to take him out.
For a series of circumstances we don't even understand.
We're beyond circumstantial here, Christian, and we can't afford to wait for the next disaster in Holden's wake.
Yeah, to them, Holden is the equivalent of having a delicate peace negotiation interrupted by Mr. Bean. Luckily, Holden's not going to Eros. He's going to coordinates that are, in fact, just some big rock. But first, he tells Naomi to do something about Amos. He is out of control.
Getting the show on the road?
Man, hairs on the back of my neck were standing up. The spy, having finally had a chance to pee, then asks Holden if he's going to toss him out in space, at least tell him so he can make his peace with that. Holden doesn't say anything, and I get it. I'm always winding up in awkward situations. Not involving a prisoner usually, but I get it. And as for Miller, he's on his way to Eros. What will he find? Let's go on to episode 8 and find out.